It is 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Chiillicothe City Council to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, city officials, and streaming audience. Welcome to the January 13, 2025 City Council regular meeting. We are meeting at 26 South Paint Street, Chiillicothe, Ohio, and I would ask the clerk to call the attendance roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson, Barnes, McKeever,
Here.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Prohl, Creed.
Here.
Ms. Nickerson, Mr. Barnes, and Mr. Prohl informed me that they'd not be in attendance this evening. Is there a motion to excuse their attendance from tonight's meeting? Motion by Mr. Dement, seconded by Mr. McKeever. The clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
They are excused. I would ask Ms. Bennett to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The minutes from the December 23rd, 2024 regular meeting have been distributed. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes? Motion by Ms. Payne, second by Mr. McKeever. Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Minutes are approved. We'll now move to the reports of committees. Development Committee, Mr. Dement.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Development has nothing on tonight's agenda and nothing to report. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Engineering Committee, Mr. Barnes is not here. Finance and Technology Committee, Mr. Prohl is not here. Human Resources Committee, Ms. Payne.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Human Resources, we do not have an item on the agenda this evening and nothing new to report on. Thank you.
Parks and Rec Committee, Ms. Nickerson is not here, so we'll move to Safety Service Committee, Mr. Creed.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have nothing to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Utilities Committee, Mr. McKeever.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Utilities has one item on the agenda tonight. It's a third reading of an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Chiillicothe, Ohio, to execute any and all documents in connection with granting an easement to Ohio Power Company. Other than that, nothing from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. City Services Committee, Ms. Preston. Excuse me.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. City Services has nothing on the agenda this evening and has nothing to report.
Community Affairs Committee, Ms. Bennett.
I think you guys have been waiting for me. President Shoemaker, we do have some things on the agenda tonight and some future things. The first thing tonight will be the third reading of the ordinance of the temporary moratorium of the location of the adult use of cannabis operators in the city of Chiillicothe, defined by Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 3780. The fourth item on the agenda is the ordinance to appropriate $50,000 from the general fund to support the Ross County Humane Society. And the fifth item is the first reading for granting $40,000 to the Hope Partnership Project. Next council meeting on January 27th, we will have a meeting over the 24117 about the homeless. I just wanted to be sure before I scheduled this that everyone has gotten the emails and the information from Linda Hoover, Terry Williams, and Alice Ingram. If not, if you'd let me know, so when we meet on the 27th. And that's all.
Thank you. We'll now move to the reports of officials. Mayor Feeney couldn't be here tonight, but he asked me to particularly thank all of the snowplow drivers and the folks that have worked so hard here in the city to kind of keep us moving in an unusual time where we got a little more snow than we're used to. So we really appreciate all of their efforts and appreciate everybody's efforts in the city to try to help keep their driveways cleaned and sidewalks and to help everybody out, their neighbors and everyone else who needs help around the city. And we really do appreciate it. The auditor is not here this evening, so there is no report from the auditor. I will turn to the law director, Ms. Villarreal.
Thank you. We have passed out to everybody our annual report to council, which essentially gives you the numbers as far as how many cases were opened, how many cases were closed, how many preliminary hearings, motion hearings, suppression hearings, and it goes through all of 2024. So we've distributed that. And other than that, I have no report. Thank you.
If there are no questions for the law director, maybe there will be in the future once you've had a chance to review that report, but we really appreciate your efforts to get us that information. So we thank you. Next, we'll move to audience participation. Any person wishing to address the council must first provide his or her name and address. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes, and I will give you a warning when there is 1 minute remaining.
Hello, my name is Welcome Stokian, and I live at 384 East Water Street, Chiillicothe. I know it's not on the agenda tonight for the public camping ordinance, but I wanted to speak to that in advance of it being on the agenda. So first of all, I appreciate the thoughtful effort the council has put into addressing the public camping in our city. This issue requires balancing public safety, cleanliness, and accessibility with compassion and long-term solutions for homelessness. I propose 2 key actions. Resources listed on 24-hour notices whenever officers post the 24-hour notice to evacuate the area or to move a camping shelter. This ensures that individuals are informed about available help. In addition to that, a 3-warning system before legal action. Implementing a system providing 3 warnings before escalating to legal penalties, recognizing that chronic challenges unhoused people may face while still promoting accountability. While this city may have some other options available, I also encourage council to adopt a comprehensive approach incorporating these 9 best practices for addressing homelessness. Expanding shelter capacity to ensure adequate low-barrier shelter options for individuals in need. Develop permanent supportive housing, which focuses on the housing first approach to provide stability and wraparound services. Collaborate with service providers and partner with nonprofits and community organizations to deliver holistic services. Enforce compassionate ordinances, balancing enforcement with outreach, avoiding criminalization of homelessness. Improve public health and safety, provide sanitation facilities, and conduct regular cleanups with respect for personal belongings. Invest in preventative programs, support rental assistance, job training, and resources for at-risk populations. Engage the community, promote understanding, reduce stigma, and encourage volunteer involvement. Secure funding and resources. This could be done by pursuing grants, public and private partnerships, and other funding opportunities. Address systemic causes, expand healthcare access, improve economic equality, and focus on education and training. These recommendations offer a compassionate, solution-focused approach that addresses the root cause of homelessness while maintaining public health and safety. Thank you for considering these suggestions as we work together for the betterment of our city and all its residents.
Thank you.
My name is the Reverend Terry Williams. I live at 47.5 East Main Street here in the city of Chiillicothe, and I'm here to speak on two small matters. First, I'll reserve my comments about the public camping ordinance for the committee meeting or communication with Chair Bennett. You've been fantastic in communicating. I did just want to lift up a piece of language that this ordinance, as it's been presented in documentation, says it's a public camping ordinance. And tonight you referred to it as a homeless ordinance. I think it's really important for us to understand that if that ordinance is intended to target homeless individuals, it puts it in a very different class, and it puts it into a targeted class that the Constitution has something to say about. So I really hope that we are not looking at this as just a backdoor way to criminalize homeless people in particular. That language is really important. The second piece that I have to ask just a little question about is you have on your agenda today the third reading of this temporary moratorium. That third reading, to my knowledge, there hasn't been an amendment of the ordinance, and it still rests with emergency language. So according to the rules of council, any vote on an item that has emergency language in it fails without 7 members voting aye. And there only being 6 members here, I'm interested to know whether you're going to table that and wait for another time, or whether you're just going to vote it down tonight.
On November 25th, we removed the emergency language from the item.
So it just hasn't been removed from the public
Correct.
item that's been sent out by the clerk.
Correct.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
that's good to know.
Mhm.
Yeah, and also the emergency language requires 6. Waiving the 3-read rule requires 9 or 7.
We're not going to debate it right now because I think we've already gotten to the point where we figured this out. If it's not there, we're not going to go through that whole discussion. But thank you for the information, because we appreciate it, and we appreciate the comments everybody makes at this time. So next.
Unrelated topic. John Thacker at, where do I live? 990 Columbus Street, apartment 307 in Chiillicothe. We saw on the agenda items, I believe it's 4 and 5 or 5 and 6, things that were approved by committee for your committee, community affairs, for nonprofit funding of various sorts. As a board member of one of those, I just was curious to know if there's anticipation that we will be on a later ballot or agenda.
Okay. Yes, we decided, since we're taking that out of the grant, I was actually going to talk to you afterwards if I could get a phone number of the lady that wrote it. We're just
Okay.
wanting to make sure they clearly understand it's coming out of grant money before we
Okay.
put it. It should be on the 27th. We've got it ready.
And I can provide you that after the
That'd be
meeting.
great. Thank you,
Okay.
John.
Thank you. Well, that was quick.
Thank you.
Jason Link, 17 Mead Drive here in the city of Chiillicothe. I was hoping that Auditor Spetnagel would be here. One of the questions I had was what the anticipated carryover balance in the general fund would be. I'm not sure, is that something that you all have knowledge of or any anticipated number of?
We can get you that information.
I would imagine,
I'll make a note to get it to you.
I would imagine that there is going to be a carryover. The city has been doing well the last several years, and Mayor Feeney has made note of that frequently, how the city is in a good financial position. And I suppose it's in a good financial position. There are $120,000 in expenditures that are on the agenda for tonight to be discussed. I guess we can get into the weeds of whether city residents should be giving $50,000 to the Humane Society or $40,000 to the Hope Partnership Program, even though it's a grant. We could argue about that, or $30,000 for disc golf. I think what concerned me most is the tax increase, the income tax increase that was proposed. Is that wasn't talked about? That didn't come out of a committee?
That came out of the Finance Committee,
Okay.
and that Dustin's in charge of that committee, and he's not available to be here tonight.
Okay, so that did come out of a committee, you're
Yes.
saying. Okay. And is that a renewal of a 0.2%?
That is a renewal, yes. And it would also be the way the language is currently worded, it is for a 10-year again and not for a permanent,
Okay.
which was a discussion point also that we had.
And so you don't have to renew it. Is that correct? You wouldn't have to do that?
We don't renew it. That is a resolution that goes to the voters, and
And I
the voters will
understand
vote
that,
on it.
but the council is the one that pushes that forward to the voters. The council could
Yes.
say, we're not going to renew this because we're in a financial position where we don't need to further tax the citizens of Chiillicothe and further, especially in the economy that we're in, the inflation that we're in. Is that's correct, that this council could say we're not going to move that forward?
That is correct, and that's what we'll be voting on here at the third reading of it.
Well, yeah, and it's emergency language. Is there a reason why it's emergency language on that?
It's got to go on the ballot
Right.
by the time for the primary. So to get the 3 read and then make it go into effect immediately was why it'd be emergency
So
language.
it's a timing thing that the council didn't get to it early enough, basically, that now it's an emergency?
No, that would be incorrect. But this is not time for debate. We'll get you any answers though if you want to, get questions.
I'm just trying to understand why it's emergency and why it can't go through the full process that a typical ordinance or legislation goes through.
Emergency language means that when it passes, it doesn't have to go through the 30-day process. Is that, I just wanted to clarify that part.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm just typically stuff has to go through that 30-day process, right? You don't do emergency language on everything. I'm just trying to understand why, because there's the Humane Society money is also emergency language, and just trying to understand why that's emergency, but the disc golf is an emergency. So just trying to understand, and this has been an ongoing thing that I've had with the council about the use of emergency language, how they use it, why they use it, all that kind of stuff. I'm not here to debate. I'm here to raise the question, the concern. I'm here to raise the question, the concern that if we do have a carryover balance, which I assume that we do, is it the right thing to do to continue to tax taxpayers and continue to increase taxes, especially given the economy that we're in? So.
Thank you.
Good evening, Doug McCord, 565 West Fifth Street. I am here to encourage everybody on this council to please, I hope you vote yes for the item number 1 concerning the temporary moratorium on marijuana dispensary. Mr. McKeever and Ms. Bennett, I thank you for your communication with me. You guys have been very good on communicating with me on this. I hope everybody in town understands that this is temporary and that this gives you guys some breathing room to grapple with something that's just came down the pike. This is huge. I mean, for a town this size. And to me, I feel like all of Ross County has one liquor store, and we all seem to get along pretty well with one liquor store. I think we can get along well with one marijuana dispensary. It's the one that's out on Bridge Street seems to be working, and it seems to be working well. I didn't plan on going in deep into the woods on some other things I wanted to say tonight, but some of the other topics that have been brought up, if after I finish, if I could also submit my written material to council. I'm glad to see that you're taking like a proactive stance on the dispensary, to at least put the brakes on just for a second, get a handle on things, and see what we really need in a town of 20,000 people when it comes to marijuana. I hope that you'll also try to make a proactive approach on the secondary marijuana businesses that are in town, the ones that operate under the Farm Bill. The one that's been in the news, Western Avenue Exotics, where they were actually trying to sell bona fide marijuana. And thank goodness for our police here in town that they put a stop to that. They were cited for that, or arrested for that, or cited for that, whatever. We've got, I've told this to the council before, we've got 13 recovery councils, 13 recovery centers in Chiillicothe. Do we know, and they all seem to be operating on a for-profit business model. Do we know how successful they are? Do we regulate where they're being put in town? The secondary marijuana businesses, are we going to regulate where they're being put in town? How many are we going to tolerate of those? I just want you to know there's a recovery center on Western Avenue called Cardinal Recovery. It sits 250 feet away from Western Avenue Exotics. That's the place that got busted for some pot. These drugs that these people are dealing with are horrendous. They're incredibly addictive, and just if something is so readily accessible to these people who are trying to get well, to just walk across the street to get a pipe, to get that secondary marijuana, now does the whole addiction process start all over again. Chiillicothe Treatment Center services is at 606 Central Center. They are 500 feet away from the same secondary marijuana store. They're also just 600 feet away from Smoker Friendly, which is where I go to buy my mom her cigarettes. And I can tell you, they're not about just cigarettes anymore. So there's this juxtaposition of these recovery centers and these secondary, these, we used to call them head shops. I was born in 1959. I know, I know all this stuff. I went through it. But these head shops and these recovery centers so close together, and so many of them in so many places, and where they I feel they should be. So I hope you'll take a proactive approach to those businesses also, because we've got to.
You've got a minute left.
A minute left. Real quick. Okay. The Chiillicothe, or the Ross County Community Action that's out on Eastern Avenue, from what I've read on its face, it looks like they're doing a good job. I'd rather see $50,000 go to them instead of the Humane Society. I've got this to, if you want, Lisa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now move on to old business. Is there any old business to come before council? Petitions and correspondence.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I've not received anything.
New business. I have a couple of items under new business. I had sent out a list of members to some boards to be reappointed, and I hope everybody had a chance to take a look at those. For the DRB reappointment, Stacy Porter, 2-year term. The DRB reappointment, Drew Musser, for a 2-year term. Health District reappointment, Melanie Euler for a 5-year term, and the Park and Recreation reappointment, Robert Barnhart, for a 5-year term. Is there any discussion of any of those, or is there a motion to accept those reappointments? Motion by Ms. Payne, second by Mr. Creed. The clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Those individuals are reappointed for the times that we discussed. There was another appointment this council needs to make to the Downtown Redevelopment District group. And it needs to be a member from council. And so I'm going to ask for a motion so that I don't feel like a teacher that's going to try to appoint somebody here and then have everybody angry with me. So I thought it might work well if Mr. Dement could do that since he's on the development committee, but I will defer to him as to whether he is interested in taking that appointment.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I would actually love that, so I appreciate that.
I'm going to accept that as a motion from you to be appointed to that, and I would ask for a second. Second by Ms. Bennett. The clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
If there's no other new business to come before us, we'll now move on to legislation.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have 6 items on the agenda this evening. Item number 1 is a third reading of an ordinance to impose a temporary moratorium on the location of adult use cannabis operators within the city of Chiillicothe as defined by Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 3780.
Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
No.
Preston,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance.
Item number 2 is the third reading of an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Chiillicothe, Ohio, to execute any and all documents in connection with granting an easement to Ohio Power Company.
Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance.
Item number 3 is the second reading of an ordinance appropriating $30,000 for the construction of a disc golf park at Goldie A. Gunlock Memorial Park in partnership with Project Bad Apple.
The ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance.
Item number 4 is the first reading of an ordinance appropriating $50,000 from unappropriated general funds for the Ross County Humane Society's Animal Care and Adoption Center project and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance.
Item number 5 is the first reading of an ordinance appropriating One Ohio opioid settlement funds in the amount of $40,000 to the Hope Partnership Project.
The ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance.
Item number 6 is the resolution declaring the necessity of amending sections 163.013F, 163.03, 163.08, and 163.16 of the codified ordinances of the city of Chiillicothe in order to provide for a 0.2% increase in the city income tax levied, directing that such increase be used exclusively for the maintenance of paving and street construction, resolving that said amendment should be placed before the electors at the election to be held on May 6, 2025, and declaring an emergency.
That resolution will move to the next agenda. Is there any other business to come before council? If not, I would accept a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Preston, second by Ms. Payne. The clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. We appreciate it.